we have tonight Jesus, lunatics, and demons. And we have a short scripture. It's not very long, but it has so much stuff in it. Um, it's just sometimes it's just amazing what little few verses of scripture has such meaning to it. So, all right. So the setting tonight is Syria, and the town of Gadara, and Syria was on the other side of the Jordan, as you can see right here, and the Syrians were mostly pig farmers. Okay, and so we'll set the stage here. Remember, the Jews do not eat pork, and pigs or swine were an abomination to them. Okay, and the lunatics that were healed, they were not Jewish. They too were Syrians. So, um, this these scriptures tonight have there's several different words used in here. I'm just going to go over them so that when we read the scriptures, you'll have an idea. Okay, but basically, okay, the word in Aramaic, okay, is this is divana, all right, or it can also be deyu, yeah, deyu. Anyway, okay, when you see this, it means a lunatic or an insane person or a crazy person. It can, it can fit any of those. All right, and there is another Aramaic word, shaddai, and it can mean demon, devil, or possessed of devils or evil spirits. And then it can also mean, you'll see somebody that has an unclean spirit or an evil spirit, and that word is used there too. Basically, they are sort of interchangeable, but whenever you see them, those words, then you will know it's really about craziness or crazy people or insane, whatever. And so, just a little nod about this unclean spirit or evil spirit. Easterners use this term to describe those who talked endlessly without making sense and those who were demented, which of course is reminiscent of the mentally ill or the insane even today. So just keep those in mind as we read this scripture. And this scripture is very the scripture is very controversial in spots. Okay, and we're going to talk about that too. But it's one of the most studied scripture passages. All right, and the other thing you will see here, you will see that Jesus is casting out. To cast out just means to restore sanity and to remove the cause that produces insanity. Okay, that's kind of a sterile definition, but that's so. Today, Aramaic speaking people often say to a healer, cast out or cut my disease. They also say, he cut my fever, meaning he healed me of my fever. Some healers strike a piece of stone on a metal object to drive out the sickness. So it's very interesting. All of this is very interesting. Okay, now, and it's significant with these scripture passages that we compare the KJV with the Lamsa. And when I say KJV, it also the traditional other traditional Bibles will be the same or very similar to the KJV. Okay, so George is going to. I'll tell you what, George. I'll read the KJV and then you read Lamsa.
Okay.
So we're going to read the King James first. And when he was come to the other side into the country of the Gergesenes, there met him two possessed with devils, coming out of the tombs, exceeding fierce, so that no man might pass by that way. And behold, they cried out, saying, what have we to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God? Art thou come hither to torment us before the time? Okay, so Lamsa.
And when Jesus came to the port on the other side to the country of the Gadarenes, he was met by two lunatics who were just coming out of the cemetery. They were exceedingly vicious, so that no man could dare to travel that road. And they cried aloud, saying, what business have we together, Jesus, Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time?
All right, so are you're getting the picture of a mentally ill two. And back then they said that the two were possessed with devils. Now, I put some other this passage is in Mark and Luke. Okay, but there was no point in putting all three of them in here. But in order to get an idea of what we're talking about and the lunatics, I put I did put Mark 5:2-5 just to show they each describe these lunatics differently, but I just wanted to get it in your mind what the lunatic and the insane people were. So, and as he went out of the boat, he was met by a man from the cemetery who had an unclean spirit. Just another way of saying who was insane, crazy, whatever. He lived in the cemetery, and no man could bind him in chains, because whenever he was bound with fetters and chains, he broke the chains and cut the fetters, and no man could control him. And always, night and day, he was in the cemetery and in the mountains, crying aloud and cutting himself with stones. Okay, now that just gives you more of a description of this mentally ill person. And I have to add in here, because I worked with the mentally ill for a very long time. And this particular description here, these are not really exaggerated, and there are like insane people in our world today, unfortunately. So, and then when we go to Luke, Luke says, and when he landed, he was met by a man from the city who had had a demon in him for a long time. And he did not wear clothes and did not live in a house, but in the cemetery. So that gives you an idea of the state, the state of uh, insane people in Jesus' time. Okay. Now you'll notice I had highlighted before the time. Okay, now this gets all blown out of proportion, but what it meant was that um, before the evening, okay, we're going to read in a minute about how these people were treated. Okay, it just meant that in the evening they sought out the lunatics and they mocked them and they made them entertain people and all that. And so when they said before the time, they just meant, well, before it was time in the evening when they would come and get them, and then they would be mocked and tormented and all of that again. And so, and even even holy men did not treat these people right. Okay. So um, so that's what they were saying. And the lunatics normally were very afraid of holy men, healers, and religious men. Now, why? Here we go. Once people begin to show signs of mental illness, they are taken to the priest or a sacred shrine for healing. Now, and this is unbelievable to me, but as I thought about it, and you go back in time, way back, priests and holy men threaten the mentally ill by scaring them, especially those who become violent in their actions. They are hoping to drive out the insanity with the threat. And so it's not unusual to see an insane person at the divan of a high government official, nobleman, or even a holy man. On such occasions, some people would amuse themselves by teasing or tormenting the disturbed individual. Sometimes the lunatic is made to sing, curse, and say many things to entertain the guests. At other times, young men will torture them. And of course, after all of this, they become angry. And what we described, uh, the in the other verses, well, they became violent. Maybe they were violent, but it was made worse. Um, and so, as I was doing this, I just put this at the bottom, the bullies, and we'll talk about it later. But it came to my mind, so I just put it in there. Okay, so once again, we have to compare this because there's so much confusion over this. So, George, I'm going to read the KJV and then you can read Lomsa again.
Okay.
And there was a good way off from them and herd of many swine feeding. We all know those are pigs, right? Okay, so the devils besought him as Jesus, saying, if thou cast us out, suffer us to go away into the herd of swine. And he said unto them, Go. And when they were come out, they went into the herd of swine. And behold, the whole herd of swine ran violently down a steep place into the sea and perished in the waters. Now, this is this is very different. So listen to the lumps and then we'll talk about it. Why?
Now there was near by them a large herd of swine feeding, and the lunatics kept asking him, saying, If you're going to heal us, permit us to attack the herd of swine. Jesus said to them, Go. And immediately they left and attacked the swine, and the whole herd went straight over the cliff and fell into the sea and were drowned in the water.
Okay, so you see there's a difference here. Okay, so just for starters, KJV said that it was the demons that asked Jesus to enter into the swine. And that is not the case. It was the lunatics that wanted to attack the swine, not enter in. So we come to, all right, so we come to the Aramaic language again, and the word al, okay, has many meanings, and in this case, it had two: to enter into or to attack. And so it's the lunatics that wanted to attack the swine. All right, now we have a problem here that we need to talk about. This is an important concept from Aramaic. Okay, demon, devil, Satan are not supernatural beings created by God. Now, let's talk about this a little bit. What we know about God is love, pure love. So God would not and could not create an evil being. Okay, but this belief stands in many Christian sects, even today. But but from Aramaic, and we remember we said that. Let me go back. Demons. Hang with me. This is difficult. Let me get. Okay, so demons, and it just the word, it's demons are not, it's not a being. Okay, a demon is just it can be it can be whatever has caused the insanity. But it is insanity. Demons are insanity. Um, and so it gets confused because people still believe that you can be possessed by a demon or a devil today. Some religions still believe that, but from the Aramaic, very simply, demons. We all get caught up with demons, evil thoughts, uh, evil, uh, bad inclinations to evil and whatnot. So we just can't think of them as a being. And that goes for Satan too. Satan, demon, devils. All right. So so why did the lunatics want to attack the swine? Um, and remember, Jesus isn't and hasn't done any specific, like, touch him or say a word. Jesus hasn't done that. And but why the lunatics wanted to attack the swine, okay, is because as proof of their conversion. Remember, they said, if you heal us, let us attack the swine. As proof of their conversion to the Jewish faith and in appreciation of what Jesus had done for them, they wanted to destroy the swine. They knew that Jesus was a great prophet and that the God of Israel had more power than the Syrian gods, whose prophets could not heal them. Still today, and this is the religious custom why they wanted to attack. When people are converted to a different faith, they discontinue the practices considered unclean by the new faith. So swine, pigs were unclean, and Jews did not eat them. And to this day, Orthodox Jews do not eat pork. Okay. And then a Christian cannot become a Muslim and be admitted into fellowship unless he sells or kills his swine and repudiates all customs and practices that Muslims declare unclean. So for the Jews and for the Muslims, unclean, unclean was the thing, and certain animals were unclean, um, and lots of other stuff was unclean. But that was the tradition and the custom back then. And and as soon as Jesus said, okay, you can go and attack the swine, they were healed. And just to go back so that I maybe will have made this clear. Once again, it wasn't the demons that entered into the swine. Okay, and that has been the controversial thing about this. And the demons, and they have the demons talking directly to Jesus, which of course, from our point of view, the demons weren't beings that could talk. So, okay. Now, go ahead and read the Matthew 8:33-34.
And they who fed them ran away and went to the city and reported everything that happened and told about the lunatics. So all the city went out to meet Jesus. And when they saw him, they urged him to depart from their borders.
Why did they want Jesus to leave town? Well, actually, I guess, we never have details, but I guess they were pretty kind to Jesus because they had just lost a large herd of swine, which of course, it's going to cost them money and all that kind of stuff. But, so they said, no, we think you ought to leave. And that's why. Now, before we go forward, and we're going to talk about this particular healing experience, but what what Jesus did, he cast out demons. Okay. And that is what we know today, and it's gone on for centuries, as an exorcism. Um, and the traditional remedy for demonic possession was ritual exorcism. Okay, and it's used in both Jewish and Christian traditions to expel demons from a person. Now, I just did a little research on this, of course. And even now, I mean, it's here, and the Catholic priests, are trained, and they've got a whole ritual and everything that they do. Okay. Um, but determining demonic possession, in this day and age, is, um, I don't know who determines it or whatever, but the research says that yes, the Catholics do perform exorcisms, but there are no numbers and there are no documented results, no documented data. So it's hard to say, okay, whether, uh, uh, whether exorcisms are done or whether they're healed. But I just wanted to put that in there because, all right, we'll talk about the healing process. Now, one of the things about this healing, this, okay, the insane, the mentally disturbed, the whatever we want to call them, the lunatics, we're talking about spiritual healing, aren't we? And it had never been done before, they said. And I'm not sure that it has ever really been done. Um, but let's look about how the outcome of the healing. Okay, so we know they attacked the swine and da da da, and they were healed. And so in the versions of Mark and Luke, we see the results of the healing. So Mark 5:15, okay, and they came to Jesus and they saw the lunatic clothed and well behaved and sitting down quietly. Now that is curing. Remember this is the lunatic or the lunatics who they couldn't keep in chains and fetters and who ran around naked and all of that. And so Jesus healed them, and they came, and there he was. Now Luke says, some men went out to see what happened, and they came to Jesus and found the man from whom the demons had gone out, dressed and well behaved, and sitting at the feet of Jesus. And then, of course, the Syrians, the people from the town, they were afraid. They had never seen anything like this. Okay. So here, we have a spiritual healing that Jesus did. Well, and how 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 does that work? I mean, how did that work? Because Jesus didn't touch them, and he didn't say a word to say you are healed and all that. He just said, go ahead and attack the swine. Okay. So So it's essentially a spiritual healing. But let's look at what he did and think about if you've ever been around the mentally ill or the insane. What we do, we don't cure them. They are deemed insane. People are deemed to not be curable. Um, but we basically control with medications. But look what Jesus did. Okay, first off, remember it said they were the lunatics. No one would go to that cemetery. No one would confront these people. No one. Well, Jesus was not afraid to enter the cemetery or to talk to the lunatics. And when the lunatics calmed down in Jesus' presence and hearing his voice, and of course, he didn't touch them. Spiritual healing here. And something in my mind that we could learn today in this world about insane people and getting to the spiritual heart of it. And I think that would be a great approach for all of our mentally ill today. And so, okay, Jesus, like I say, they were immediately comfortable in his presence. And that presence is the presence that Jesus was talking about. It was his kingdom message, the presence and the guidance of God. That was his mission. And I also put this in here because it's the power of the presence of God for healing. I mean, it's available to all because remember, Jesus said, look, that was his message for people to understand that God, God is everywhere. And God's presence is here now on earth. And so, and of course, it's available to all. So, and how did Jesus, and then of course, his disciples, and remember, it wasn't just the 12, he sent out 70. Okay, to perform such a miracle as casting out the devil and healing epilepsy is involved here too. One needs tremendous spiritual strength and a strong faith in God, who is the creator of health and who has power over any illness, and I just put in there demon. And to get the spiritual strength, I don't have the scripture in here, but remember, Jesus said you need a lot more prayer and fasting. And I just put on there meditation because if you fast, you lose your physical what's the word? You don't focus so much on your physical as you do the spiritual, when you fast, but it's also the same way when you meditate. And so just that's the power of the presence. And that's I hope that I have covered and tried as simply as I could to explain all this. And so, once again, we appreciate your contributions. Just we are on Facebook, YouTube, and so just for food for thought here. It is said that mental illness is not curable. It is treated with medications mostly and therapy sometimes. Rarely do we hear of a mentally ill person being healed as Jesus did it. Um, so I'm not saying, well, it doesn't occur at all, but rarely. So why can't we heal like Jesus? And that's our little topic for tonight. And I'm open to questions, or as I said, um, I don't know. I don't know how much of this has changed. Um, it's been a long time since I actually worked in with mentally ill. A lot of things have changed, but um, mentally ill people, there is still a stigma. Mentally ill people in the community are still mis well mistreated in many cases, and so but and so why can't we heal like Jesus? Okay.